Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Today I want to talk about the movie Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. As I've mentioned many times before, I like the first part because of its unique atmosphere, which stands apart from everything we've seen in the other Harry Potter films. But, alas, it's also a film that suffered from decisions made during the adaptation process. There are so many things left unsaid and so much that becomes unclear for those who haven't read the books. The cut and changed scenes, of course, don't solve all the problems, but they make the film much more cohesive. Let's go through these scenes and see how they changed the way we perceive the film. Number 1. I lost my sister. The Dursley family are caricatured characters. Their role in the story is quite limited, and there are very few scenes that explore them. One of the most striking cutscenes involves Aunt Petunia, who is looking at the empty living room. Harry tries to convince her to leave, fearing for their safety. In response, Petunia says one of the strongest lines in the film. "You weren't the only one who lost a mother that night in Godric's Hollow. I lost my sister." This scene distorts the character but still feels powerful and emotional as it reveals Petunia's hidden feelings. Quote, "Goodbye," she said, hastily leaving. Then she stopped for a moment, looking at Harry as if she was about to say something, but then hurried away. Number 2. The right decision. Another cutscene involves Death Eater Yaxley visiting the Granger household. His intentions are clear, but thanks to Hermione's intervention, her parents managed to escape to Australia. Although this scene isn't particularly crucial, it adds context and demonstrates how the characters are planning to avoid attacks. Number 3. See you, Big D. The scene where Dudley says goodbye to Harry was cut, even though it was an important moment in their relationship. Dudley, ignoring his father, shakes Harry's hand and admits, "You saved my life." This echoes how, despite all the past disagreements, their relationship might change. Quote, "You saved my life," Dudley said, and Harry was stunned. Number 4. Techno-magic. Arthur Weasley, who's fascinated by Muggle technology, uses his knowledge to create radio transmitters that will help members of the Order of the Phoenix communicate. This cutscene adds depth to the character and shows how magic and technology can coexist. Number 5. Late-night talks. Harry and Hermione discuss where to look for Horcruxes when Ron wakes up and warns them that Voldemort's name can't be spoken out loud because of the taboo, which allows Death Eaters to track them. This information is important for the further development of events, but was cut from the film. Number 6. Be careful, Arthur. After Ron and Harry, disguised, try to find out if Arthur Weasley is being followed, it turns out that his family is indeed under surveillance. This scene adds tension and reveals important plot elements, but it was cut. Quote, "Is that a threat, Rancorn?" Arthur asked, realizing that Harry had actually warned him about real danger. Number 7. Ron and Hermione. Not a particularly important scene, but it shows how Ron and Hermione spend time together, with Ron teaching Hermione how to make pancakes. The film clearly lacks such sweet moments, and this scene would have added warmth and connection between the characters. Number 8. The secret of the locket. Harry's hand trembled as he reached for the Slytherin locket. The moment his fingers brushed the cold metal surface, a sharp, icy chill ran through his body, seizing his heart with an unfamiliar dread. This wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was a dark relic, pulsing with malevolent power. His skin prickled as a surge of fear washed over him, but it was more than just the coldness. The locket felt alive, as though it was trying to draw him in, to consume him. When he touched it, vivid, nightmarish images flashed through his mind, visions of death, destruction, and shadows of Voldemort's influence. Harry recoiled, but the force pulling him in was overwhelming. "Don't touch it again, Harry," Hermione warned, her voice shaking. She too could feel the dark magic radiating from the locket, but the terror in Harry's eyes was something she could never have prepared for. It wasn't just the locket that terrified him, it was what it represented. The constant reminder of Voldemort's power, of how deeply the Dark Lord had entrenched himself in the world. "It's not just a piece of jewelry," Harry muttered, his voice distant, as if the words were escaping him against his will. The fear gripped him, tightening like a vice, but he knew they had no choice. They had to destroy it. But as he held it, the pressure of Voldemort's dark legacy seemed to whisper, threatening to overwhelm them both. The battle was not just against the physical forces of darkness, it was a psychological war, one that left both Harry and Hermione more vulnerable with each passing moment. Number 9. Farewell to Cedric. In the silence of the dark room, Harry sat alone, the weight of Cedric Diggory's death pressing down on him. His thoughts wandered back to the night in the graveyard, to the moment when Cedric had died. He had been so full of life, so young, so full of promise. Harry closed his eyes, imagining what might have been. What if he had done something differently? What if he had acted faster, or shouted louder, or just done more? He couldn't help but feel the sting of guilt, the unbearable thought that perhaps he could have saved him. "I could have stopped it," Harry whispered to the empty room, but the darkness around him swallowed the words. As he sat there, the cold of the room seeped into his bones, and the emptiness of the house around him seemed to reflect the emptiness he felt inside. The harsh truth was that not every act of bravery ends in victory. Cedric's life was gone, and no matter how many times Harry played the events in his mind, he couldn't change what had happened. The memory of Cedric, his smile, his courage, haunted Harry. He couldn't help but think of how differently things could have turned out. "But here I am," he thought bitterly, alone in the dark, with nothing but regrets. The past loomed over him, reminding him that even heroes have their limits, and sometimes even the bravest fall. Number 10. The Legend of the Moon Goddess. As they sat by the fire, the flickering flames casting shadows on the walls, Hermione shared an old legend with Harry. Her voice was calm, but there was a spark of excitement in her eyes as she spoke of the goddess of the moon, a mystical figure whose story had been passed down through generations. "The legend says the moon goddess created the world in the night," Hermione began, her gaze focused on the fire. She gathered light in her hand and poured it onto the earth, giving life to everything. "If we follow the light she left behind, we will be on the right path." Harry listened intently, captivated by the beauty of the story and the way it seemed to connect with their quest. It was more than just a myth. It felt like a clue, a way to navigate the dark forces they were up against. Hermione's knowledge of such ancient legends always amazed Harry. She wasn't just a bookworm, she was an explorer of hidden truths, someone who understood the depths of magical history. This legend, about the goddess who guided with light, seemed to hold more than just a poetic tale. It was a guiding principle, a metaphor for their journey. As she explained, Harry realized that the search for the Horcruxes wasn't just about finding physical objects, but about following a path of understanding, one filled with ancient wisdom, hidden meanings and the light of knowledge. "We have to follow the light," Hermione said with conviction, as if she, too, had found a new direction in the story. Harry nodded, understanding that this myth was more than just magic. It was a key to their survival. Number 11. The Mirror of Edward. Harry stood before the mirror, heart pounding, as he gazed at the reflection staring back at him. It was a vision so vivid, so real, that for a moment he forgot where he was. The mirror didn't just show him his face, it showed him his deepest desires. He saw his parents, alive, laughing with him as they had never done. He saw a world where his life had been different, a life without the pain and loneliness that had marked his years. The temptation was overwhelming. It felt so close, so real, as if he could reach out and touch it. But in the back of his mind he knew better. This was an illusion. It was nothing more than a dream. As he stood there, entranced by the image, Harry felt a sharp pull in his chest. It was the same feeling he'd had when he first saw the mirror, back when he had been just a boy at Hogwarts. But now, more than ever, he understood what it meant. This wasn't a mirror that reflected reality. It reflected his deepest yearnings, his regrets, and his fears. For a brief moment, Harry was lost in the vision. But as he took a step back, he felt a cold shiver run through him. He couldn't afford to let himself be consumed by this illusion. He couldn't lose himself in what could have been. Harry stood there, feeling his heart beat faster. He knew this wasn't reality. The words echoed in his mind, reminding him of the truth. The mirror wasn't showing him what was, it was showing him what could have been, what he longed for but could never have. In that moment, Harry realized something deep and profound. Sometimes the greatest danger was in pursuing the things that weren't meant to be. The mirror had shown him his deepest wish, but it was a wish that would have trapped him in the past. He had to let go of it, for only by embracing reality could he move forward. And so, with great effort, he turned away, understanding that to live a full life, he had to face his present, not hide behind illusions. Number 12. The Secret of Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore sat across from Harry, the weight of his past visible in the lines of his face. For years, Harry had seen him as a figure of wisdom, a man with all the answers, who stood as a beacon of light in the darkest times. But tonight, Dumbledore was different. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by an air of quiet regret, as if the weight of his own decisions had finally caught up with him. "I haven't always been right, Harry," Dumbledore said softly, his eyes distant. "I've been blind. I've made mistakes, big ones." His voice cracked slightly, a rare break in his usually unshakable composure. Harry listened in silence, his mind struggling to reconcile the man before him with the hero he had always admired. "You've always been the one with all the answers," Harry said, almost as a question, feeling a sense of confusion and admiration. Dumbledore's smile was weary, as if the years of guiding others had left him burdened. "I tried, Harry. I tried to fix what I could, but the damage... Sometimes it's too much. I can't change the past, but I can learn from it. And so can you." The words hung heavy in the air. Harry had always seen Dumbledore as someone untouchable, someone who never made mistakes. But this moment, this vulnerability, shattered that image. For the first time, Harry saw Dumbledore not as an infallible leader, but as a man just like everyone else. A man who had struggled, who had made choices he regretted. Dumbledore's confession resonated with Harry because in that moment he realized that even the greatest of people carried the weight of their failures. "We all make mistakes," Dumbledore continued, his voice steady now, though the pain remained in his eyes. "But what matters is how we move forward, what we learn from them." The words echoed in Harry's mind. They weren't just for him, they were for everyone who had ever had to confront their own flaws. Harry's heart felt heavy with understanding. Dumbledore had always been a guide, but now, in his most honest moment, he was showing Harry something far more important, that redemption, growth, and forgiveness began with recognizing the mistakes we've made. Number 13, the secret of the Golden Trust. The Golden Trust lay in Harry's hand, its surface gleaming softly in the dim light. He felt an immediate pull, as if the object itself was calling to him. There was something unsettling about it, something ancient and dangerous. He wasn't sure if it was the symbol etched into the surface, the intertwined loops that seemed to stretch on forever, or the way it thrummed with a power he couldn't quite understand. His fingers brushed the edges and a cold shiver ran down his spine. This wasn't just an artifact, it was a key, a reminder of the dark forces they were up against. Hermione stood beside him, her brow furrowed in thought. "The Golden Trust is not just a symbol, Harry," she said quietly, her voice tinged with caution. "It's a relic, tied to dark magic. It represents power, endless power. It was created centuries ago, but its true purpose, that's what we need to figure out." The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with meaning. This wasn't a relic they could afford to ignore. Hermione's research had revealed enough to know that objects like this often carried curses, hidden spells that could turn the tide of battle in unexpected ways. Ron, who had been watching Harry's reaction with unease, stepped forward. "What do we do with it?" he asked, his voice strained. "If it's dangerous, shouldn't we destroy it?" But Harry wasn't so sure. There was something about the object that felt important, almost like it had a part to play in the larger puzzle they were trying to solve. He wasn't sure what it was, but the more he looked at it, the more he felt it was connected to the quest they were on. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but in a way that felt beyond their control. As Harry held the Golden Trust, the weight of its potential pressed down on him. It wasn't just an object of power, it was a warning. "I can feel it," Harry whispered, his grip tightening around it. "This is no ordinary object. It's something we can't control." In that moment he realized that the deeper they delved into the world of dark magic, the more they would be forced to confront its hidden dangers. The Golden Trust was just one part of a much larger, much darker story, and it was a story they couldn't escape. Number 14, Hermione and the Memories. In the film, Hermione's sorrow is briefly shown when she decides to erase her parents' memories to protect them. We see her pain, but it's only a fleeting moment. However, in the deleted scene, we witness Hermione's internal struggle in greater depth. Holding a small mirror, she hesitates before casting a spell to alter her parents' memories. The decision weighs heavily on her. This spell isn't just about erasing memories, it's about erasing a part of herself, a part of her past. It's a decision born of love, but it feels like a betrayal. She stood frozen for a moment, holding the small mirror in her hands. The pain in her eyes was so intense that Harry felt her heavy choices echo in his heart. The mirror, in that moment, is not just a tool, it's a symbol of everything she's giving up. In this brief but powerful moment, Hermione shows the depth of her character. She is not only a brilliant witch, but also someone deeply connected to her family. Her decision to forget her parents is an unimaginable sacrifice, and yet it is one she feels compelled to make. It is a reminder that the war against Voldemort has forced everyone to face impossible choices. "I had to do it, Harry," Hermione says later, trying to explain her actions. But we can see the raw truth in her eyes. No explanation could ease the pain of what she's done. The scene adds complexity to Hermione's character. She's not simply the clever, fearless friend who's always ready with a plan. She's also someone who, like Harry, has had to grow up far too quickly. The scene also highlights the strength of her friendship with Harry. He knows perhaps better than anyone what it means to sacrifice for the greater good. As he watches Hermione's silent battle, he's reminded of his own struggles and the painful sacrifices he's made along the way. Their shared understanding deepens their bond even without words. The deleted scene captures a key moment in Hermione's emotional journey. In the final version of the film, we never truly get to see the weight of her decision. Instead, we're left with a quick glance of sadness as she erases her parents' memories, leaving much of her inner turmoil unspoken. But in that lost scene, the emotional impact is clear. Hermione is forced to choose between her love for her family and the safety of the world around her. It's a heartbreaking decision that proves once again how the consequences of war stretch far beyond the battlefield. Number 15. Neville's Curse. In the Harry Potter films, certain moments are meant to define a character's journey, yet many key scenes, though present in the books, are either shortened or omitted entirely for the sake of pacing or runtime. One such scene, cut from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, had the potential to deeply affect the audience's understanding of Neville Longbottom's character, providing a poignant moment of emotional depth and demonstrating his resilience in the face of unimaginable pain. The scene in which Neville reveals the horrifying truth about his parents, Alice and Frank Longbottom, would have added layers to Neville's character and made his journey all the more impactful. This missing scene offers a deeper look into Neville's internal torment and the psychological scars that would have been significant for both the plot and his development. In the scene, Neville stands on the edge of despair, emotionally broken by the weight of his parents' fate. His heart aches as he reflects on the irreversible curse that transformed Alice and Frank Longbottom into shadows of themselves. The long-lasting effects of Bellatrix Lestrange's Crucio curse during the First Wizarding War rendered Neville's parents mentally shattered, their once brilliant minds now nothing more than a jumbled mess of broken memories and confused thoughts. In his moments of isolation and vulnerability, Neville explains the torment he endures daily watching his parents live, yet unable to save them from the tragedy that befell them. It is not just the physical toll the curse took on them, but the knowledge that there was nothing, not even the brightest magic, that could restore them to who they once were. Even now, as Neville looks at them, he sees them, his parents, but only in the most hollow, unrecognizable form. He remembers the brilliant, loving figures they were before the curses destroyed them. Every day he thinks of how he failed to protect them, how he failed to save them from their broken fate. The reader, though not hearing Neville's words, can feel the depth of his sorrow through this unsaid confession. His struggle isn't just about being brave on the battlefield or taking the mantle of leadership. It's about living with the weight of unhealable wounds, unable to do anything to undo the devastation. For Neville, his journey is about proving his worth in the face of his internal demons. This moment, though haunting, serves as a powerful testament to Neville's resilience. While Harry Potter faces his own set of horrors, Neville's story is no less tragic, yet it is one of self-sacrifice and endurance. He is not just a brave friend or a soldier in the battle against darkness. Neville is a person who has fought his own battle for years, silently struggling with the fact that his parents, the two people who should have been his greatest support, were robbed of their minds by the very forces Harry fights against. The emotional torment of not being able to save his parents would shape Neville's perspective on life. It would also clarify his unshakable determination to stand up to Voldemort, not only to avenge the loss of countless innocent lives, but to stand for those who, like his parents, have been irrevocably harmed. Imagine, for a moment, Neville standing in the presence of Harry, facing the reality of his parents' fate. The weight of this tragic truth, knowing that there is no undoing what's been done, sends Neville spiraling into a place of quiet despair. Yet even in his darkest moments he rises, determined not to let his personal loss define him entirely. The cutscene not only deepens our understanding of Neville's inner world, but it also reflects the core themes of the Harry Potter series. His struggle with loss, grief, and the seeming impossibility of finding redemption mirrors that of many other characters in the story. Through Neville, the film would have conveyed that the effects of the war were far-reaching, stretching beyond the obvious victims of Voldemort's reign, and touching those like Neville who quietly endure unspeakable pain. Neville's strength in this moment lies not in some heroic act, but in his refusal to let his personal tragedy define him. He doesn't give up. Instead, he channels his grief into something greater, something more meaningful. He becomes a beacon of hope for others. While it would have been easy for Neville to give in to bitterness or despair, he instead chooses to fight. This fight is not just against Voldemort and his followers, but against the overwhelming sadness that haunts him every day, the knowledge that his parents will never be the same again. By confronting this anguish, Neville displays a quiet courage that, though not always apparent, is monumental. The cutscene also offers a rich layer to Neville's character, showing a side of him that contrasts sharply with the playful, bumbling young man introduced in earlier books. Throughout Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Neville is perceived as timid and clumsy, and though his bravery begins to emerge, it is not until the final installment that he fully matures into the powerful figure we see in the Battle of Hogwarts. The cutscene would have allowed viewers to appreciate this evolution more deeply, highlighting the transformation from a reluctant, insecure boy to a leader capable of immense courage. By showing the emotional toll of Neville's personal loss, we see the complexity of his growth, making his eventual triumphs in the final book all the more powerful. Number 16, Ron and his dreams. In the world of Harry Potter, few characters experience as much internal conflict as Ron Weasley. Throughout the series, Ron grapples with his identity, often feeling overshadowed by his more talented and famous friends, Harry and Hermione. However, one moment that could have deepened our understanding of Ron's struggle was a cutscene from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, where Ron opens up about his fears, insecurities, and aspirations. This moment, though absent from the final film, would have added a layer of emotional complexity to Ron's character, shedding light on how his internal battles shape his actions and relationships. In the scene, Ron confides in Harry and Hermione, revealing his sense of inadequacy. He speaks of his constant fear of being outshone by them, feeling as though his accomplishments are always second-rate compared to Harry's bravery and Hermione's intelligence. He wonders why he, who has done so much in service of their friendship, still feels like a background character in the story of their lives. The words he speaks cut deep, exposing the vulnerability behind the bravado he often hides behind. Ron admits that despite being a loyal friend and a brave companion in battle, he has always struggled with the idea of being just a guy, a sidekick with no grand destiny. In this scene, he admits to something rarely voiced out loud, that he has always wished to be more than just the supporting player, even though he knows he doesn't have the heroic qualities that make Harry the chosen one or Hermione the brightest witch of her age. As he speaks, it's clear that Ron's feelings stem from a place of self-doubt rather than arrogance. He has always been the funny one, the one who makes jokes to cover up his insecurities, and the one who sacrifices so much for his friends. Yet, beneath his humour and occasional brashness lies a deep yearning for recognition, for his worth to be seen. He doesn't want to be known only as the best friend or the funny sidekick. In his heart, he dreams of greatness, even though he knows it's not meant to be. Ron's wish is not for glory or fame, but for a chance to prove to himself that he is more than his insecurities. This moment, if included in the film, would have humanized Ron even further. The viewer would see him not just as the loyal companion to Harry, but as a young man struggling with the weight of expectations, his own and those of others. Ron's journey throughout the series is one of personal growth, and this scene would have served as a poignant moment of reflection, where he recognizes that he is not simply a bystander in the fight against darkness, but an integral part of it. His role in the trio is not just defined by his proximity to Harry, but by the sacrifices he makes and the strength he demonstrates when it matters most. The cutscene also touches on a deeper theme, the pressure of living up to greatness. Ron is keenly aware that he does not possess the chosen qualities that make Harry special, and he certainly doesn't have Hermione's academic prowess. In a world that values extraordinary feats and accomplishments, Ron feels left behind even though he has his own qualities that are just as valuable. His sense of inferiority is compounded by the fact that he comes from a large, loving family, but one that is also filled with talented, high-achieving individuals. In contrast to his brothers, who excel in various ways, Ron often feels like the overlooked member of the Weasley family. This makes his desire to step out of their shadows and achieve something meaningful all the more urgent. But he is caught in a paradox. He wants to prove his worth, but he doesn't believe he has the abilities to do so. The cutscene provides a much-needed opportunity to explore Ron's inner world, something the films often gloss over. Ron's insecurity is not just about not being as famous as Harry or as brilliant as Hermione, it's also about the pressure he feels to live up to an ideal that doesn't align with who he is. This tension between self-perception and reality is a powerful force that drives his actions throughout the series. When Ron runs away during the hunt for Horcruxes, it's not just about fear or cowardice, it's about his growing frustration with feeling useless and his belief that his contributions are not enough. The scene where he discusses his doubts would have served as a way to show the internal conflict that leads to his eventual departure from the group. He doesn't leave because he doesn't care about Harry and Hermione, but because he doesn't know where he fits into their epic quest. He feels small in comparison, unsure of his place in a world that needs heroes, not sidekicks. The emotional depth of this scene also adds a level of poignancy to Ron's return later in the story. When he finally comes back to the trio, it's not just a victory over his fears, it's a moment of self-realization. By returning, he chooses to overcome his doubts, to be the friend that Harry and Hermione need, and to accept that his worth isn't measured by whether or not he achieves something grand. His actions in the final battle are proof that he has found a way to reconcile his self-doubt with his loyalty and bravery. The scene where he shares his vulnerabilities would have made this moment of return feel even more earned, as the viewer would understand the emotional stakes behind it. Number 17, the kiss amid destruction. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the relationship between Harry Potter and Ginny Weasley was a cornerstone of emotional depth amidst the chaos of the final battle. Their love story, born in the earlier films, had been somewhat subdued, especially in the Half-Blood Prince, but in the Deathly Hallows it reached its peak. However, not all the moments that could have fleshed out their bond made it to the big screen. One such moment, a pivotal scene involving a kiss between Harry and Ginny amidst the ruins of Hogwarts, was left out. But its absence left a void that could have enhanced both the narrative and emotional tone of the film. This moment, though brief, encapsulated the very essence of what the characters had been enduring. After the chaos of battle, Harry and Ginny find themselves standing in the midst of the ruins of Hogwarts. The night is full of the distant sounds of combat, and the castle itself, a symbol of resilience and hope, is crumbling under the onslaught. The scene, as originally written, was not just a tender, romantic moment between two characters who had been through so much together, but it was a visual representation of the central theme of love surviving even in the darkest of times. The kiss was meant to be a cathartic release, a culmination of their relationship that had been simmering beneath the surface throughout the war. The emotional weight of this scene cannot be overstated. In the film, Harry and Ginny's romance had been largely relegated to the background, overshadowed by the urgency of the battle and Harry's quest to destroy Voldemort. The kiss, which was supposed to take place amidst the debris, would have provided a much-needed contrast to the war-torn backdrop, showing that even in such desolation, love could endure and blossom. Ginny and Harry's relationship had grown from the beginning, and their connection had always been one of mutual understanding and respect. The bond between them, which had been tested by time and circumstance, could have reached its emotional apex in this destroyed setting. The moment of their kiss among the ruins would have been more than just a romantic gesture. It would have symbolized hope. The devastation of the battle had stripped away so much, including the safety and security of Hogwarts, a place that had been a symbol of protection for Harry and his friends throughout the years. Yet in that moment of desolation, Harry and Ginny found solace in each other, in the quiet understanding of their shared struggles. It was a kiss that spoke of survival, of their ability to still find peace in one another amidst the violence surrounding them. What made this scene even more significant was its contrast to the earlier developments of their relationship. Throughout the war, Harry was caught between his duty to destroy Voldemort and his desire to protect those he loved, including Ginny. Their relationship had faced many challenges, not the least of which was Harry's internal struggle. Harry had left Ginny to protect her, believing that his own life was too dangerous. But Ginny, being no stranger to loss and pain, remained a pillar of strength throughout, and their bond only grew stronger. This scene would have been a testament to that unyielding love, showing how they could finally come together despite the chaos and find something to hold on to, each other. There is a unique poignancy in this moment, particularly when one considers the context in which it occurs. The entire film is filled with sorrow, loss, and sacrifice. Characters like Fred Weasley, Remus Lupin, and Nymphadora Tonks are gone, and the final battle is approaching its climax. In the midst of this overwhelming grief, Harry and Ginny's kiss would have been a bittersweet reminder that life, in all its pain and uncertainty, continues. Love, a theme that runs through the entire Harry Potter series, is not vanquished by death or destruction, but finds a way to persist and evolve, even in the most trying of circumstances. The kiss was meant to be a quiet but powerful statement of this idea. The omission of this scene, while understandable for pacing and narrative reasons, left a noticeable gap in the emotional arc of Harry and Ginny's relationship. The film's focus on the battle and Harry's singular pursuit of defeating Voldemort meant that there was little room for moments of quiet reflection or tenderness. Yet this was a scene that could have brought balance, offering a pause from the relentless action. It could have been a moment of peace and resolution for both characters, allowing the audience to feel the culmination of their journey, not just in the battle against evil, but also in their personal connection. Even more than a physical kiss, This moment would have been about the emotional release it provided. Harry and Ginny's relationship had always been intertwined with their struggles, both internal and external. For Harry, loving Ginny was not a simple matter of desire, it was an act of trust and vulnerability. The war had changed him, hardened him, and in some ways he had come to believe that he might not survive to experience love or happiness again. Ginny, on the other hand, had always been fiercely independent, yet her love for Harry was unwavering. Her ability to love him despite the dangers was a testament to her own strength and resilience. In Deathly Hallows, Harry's character was going through his most intense emotional and psychological battles, and this kiss could have served as a reminder of what he was fighting for. It wasn't just about defeating Voldemort, it was about preserving the love that had been forged through hardship. It was about finding something beautiful and pure in a world that had been ravaged by war. The kiss was a symbol of that beauty, a moment of warmth and humanity amidst the chaos. Number 18, Friends in Danger. In the complex magical world of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, there's a particular scene that many fans wish had made it to the final cut of the film, a scene that underscores the unbreakable bond of friendship among the trio. It occurs just after they've narrowly escaped a dangerous encounter with Death Eaters, adding a layer of depth and emotional resonance to the narrative. Though it wasn't part of the original film, the essence of this moment is precisely what fans cherished about the trio's relationship throughout the series, their unshakable loyalty and unwavering support for one another, even when facing their darkest fears. In the proposed scene, Harry, Hermione, and Ron find themselves trapped in a dangerous situation. The trio is no strangers to peril, but this particular moment is a stark reminder of the consequences of their actions in the battle against Voldemort. The group has just entered a seemingly innocuous area, but the looming presence of Death Eaters soon makes it clear that they've walked right into an ambush. The tension is thick, and every step they take seems to echo in the silence that surrounds them. The footsteps of their enemies grow louder, and the urgency of the moment becomes palpable. But in this fraught instant, it's their unity that keeps them from unraveling. As the footsteps grow nearer, Hermione instinctively grabs Ron's hand, her fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the desperate need to hold on to something, to ground herself in a moment where everything is uncertain. The sound of the approaching footsteps threatens to drown out the rhythmic pounding of their hearts. The shadows stretch longer, and the trio instinctively knows that they must remain as still and silent as possible. Their every movement could mean the difference between life and death. Ron, normally the one to crack a joke in dire situations, remains unusually quiet, his face a picture of concentration as he braces for the inevitable confrontation. But there's no time for words now. The only thing that matters is the quiet strength that their friendship provides. In this moment, it isn't the magic of wands or the power of spells that holds the trio together. It is their unwavering trust in one another. Harry, standing just a few feet away, can feel the tension in the air. He doesn't need to look at his friends to know exactly how they feel. Their bond has been forged through years of shared struggles, losses, and victories. They've been through so much together, and now, in this moment of heightened danger, it's their unity that offers them hope. The stakes are higher than ever. The Death Eaters, with their unmistakable menace, are drawing nearer, and there's no escape. But in the midst of this threat, there's a quiet understanding among the three of them. They will not falter. Not now. The threat of imminent capture or even death is real, but so too is the strength they derive from their friendship. Harry's thoughts race, but his resolve never wavers. The mere presence of his friends who are standing beside him in silence makes him feel ready for whatever comes next. They've faced down dangers before, but this is different. This is the kind of danger that threatens not just their lives, but the world they've fought so hard to protect. And yet even in the face of it, they remain steadfast in their loyalty to one another. Hermione, ever the logical one, is focused, calculating their best options. She knows they have little time and the situation is dire, but instead of panicking, she finds strength in the steady presence of Ron and Harry beside her. She grips Ron's hand tighter, not only as a gesture of support, but as a silent promise that they will make it through this together. For Hermione, it's always been about finding a way out, a way to fight back. And in that moment, it's not the knowledge in her brain that guides her, but the connection in her heart to the two people who have always been by her side. As the footsteps grow louder, Harry silently checks his wand. His mind is already racing through the various spells that could help them escape, but none of them are guaranteed. What if their magic isn't enough? What if the Death Eaters have grown stronger, more ruthless? The questions swirl in his mind, but they don't deter him. What matters now is that he is not alone. He looks over at Hermione and Ron, and he knows that whatever happens next, they'll face it as a team. They always have, and they always will. There's no doubt in his heart that their combined strength, not just in magic, but in their friendship, will see them through. The danger is real, but it is also something they have faced together time and time again. They have fought against impossible odds before, and they've always come out the other side stronger, more determined. This time will be no different. The world outside may be full of shadows and threats, but in that moment, standing together, there's a quiet power that they know will help them prevail. They are not alone, and they will never be alone as long as they have each other. Despite the growing threat, despite the looming danger, Harry's heart feels lighter, if only for a moment. In the face of the darkness that surrounds them, he knows that as long as they stand together, they will never be defeated. Their bond is their greatest strength, and it will carry them through even the most perilous situations. The looming danger, the footsteps drawing closer, none of it matters in the face of the unbreakable connection they share. They've always been stronger together, and in this moment that truth rings louder than ever before. The scene captures the heart of the trio's dynamic, one that has been built over the course of 7 books and films. It's not just their magic that makes them formidable, it's their loyalty, their friendship, and the way they lean on each other in moments of crisis. The real power, the power that ultimately defeats Voldemort, lies not in spells or curses, but in the strength of the relationships they've formed. In this deleted scene, we would see the trio at their most vulnerable and at their most powerful, showing how their unwavering support for one another is what will carry them through the final battle, no matter what comes their way. Had this scene been included in the final film, it would have added an emotional depth that resonates with fans on a much deeper level. The trio's journey has always been one of friendship, and in this moment, their unity is emphasized more than ever. It serves as a reminder of the emotional core of the series, a core that has always been about the importance of love, loyalty, and friendship. While the film certainly captures these themes, the addition of this scene would have allowed audiences to see just how much the trio relies on one another in their darkest hour, making their eventual triumph all the more satisfying and poignant. The power of friendship, especially when it's tested to its limits, is a recurring theme throughout the Harry Potter series. This deleted scene would have been a beautiful reflection of that theme, adding layers of depth to the final battle and showing the trio's resilience in the face of unimaginable danger. In a world where dark forces threaten everything they hold dear, it's the light of their friendship that ultimately guides them to victory. And in that we find the true magic of the Harry Potter universe. Number 19, A Visit to Hogsmeade. As Harry, Ron, and Hermione trudged through the dense forest, the weight of their mission hung heavily upon them. The search for Horcruxes, the quest to destroy Voldemort's very soul, seemed endless. Every day was a battle against time, a battle against their fears, and, at times, a battle against themselves. It had been weeks since they had set foot in a place of safety, a place that once felt so full of laughter and warmth. Now the shadows of war loomed over everything they once held dear. And yet, amidst the madness, they made a decision, a rare one, that spoke to the heart of who they were, even in the midst of this harrowing journey. They chose to visit Hogsmeade. It was a fleeting, momentary decision. A chance to rest, to breathe, to feel human once again. Hogsmeade, a small village that had become as much a home to them as Hogwarts itself, held memories of simpler times, of joy, and of a world that existed before Voldemort's return. For a moment, the burden of their quest seemed to fade as they walked along the familiar path, their feet crunching against the earth that had been worn smooth by countless visits before. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough. Enough to remind them of the people they had been before this journey began. As they neared the village, Harry couldn't help but feel a wave of nostalgia. His eyes swept across the familiar buildings, the 3 broomsticks, Zonko's joke shop, and the post office, all unchanged by the years. It was as if time had stood still in this corner of the wizarding world. The echoes of laughter from countless students filled his ears, memories of laughter shared with his friends and classmates. And yet, now, the village felt different, quieter. The streets, though still vibrant with life, lacked the carefree energy that had once characterized them. There was an undercurrent of tension, the unmistakable feeling that danger was lurking around every corner, even here. The trio walked through the cobblestone streets, each lost in their own thoughts, but sharing in the unspoken bond that this visit brought. Harry's gaze lingered on the familiar sights, but his thoughts were far from here. It was a delicate balance. His heart yearned for the normalcy of this place, but his mind kept reminding him that they could not stay here. Not yet. Not until they had finished what they had started. But for this brief moment, he allowed himself to forget the looming threat. He allowed himself to feel the warmth of the village and the comfort of being in a place where they could pretend, if only for an hour, that everything was as it should be. Hermione, ever practical, seemed to sense that this visit was more than just a casual detour. She, too, was lost in the memories of happier times. She had spent countless hours in Hogsmeade with Harry and Ron during their school years. It was a place of adventure, of discovery, and yes, of some mischief. She could still remember the time they had sneaked into Zonko's joke shop to buy some joke sweets for Fred and George, or the time they had all spent laughing in the 3 broomsticks with Madame Rosmerta. Those moments, while simple, had been filled with the joy of youth, and now they felt like an eternity ago. Ron, always more in touch with his emotions than he liked to admit, had his own feelings about this visit. For him, it was more than just a break from their relentless search for the Horcruxes. It was a reminder of everything he had left behind. The warmth of his family, the safety of Hogwarts, and the certainty that life could still hold moments of joy, even in the darkest of times. But as much as he wanted to cling to this moment, he too knew that the war was far from over. The world was not as it had been, and the days of carefree visits to Hogsmeade were gone, replaced by the harsh realities of their present. Still, walking through the village, he allowed himself a moment of peace, a moment where he could feel like a child again, if only for a brief time. The three of them walked toward the Three Broomsticks, where Madame Rosmerta greeted them with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She, too, knew that things had changed. She knew what the world was becoming, and the worry was written all over her face. But for a moment, she was able to push aside her fears and offer them something familiar, a warm fire and a drink to soothe the soul. It was a fleeting comfort, but it was enough. For a brief moment, they were not soldiers in a war. They were just three friends, sitting together in a familiar pub, surrounded by the echoes of their past. As they sat in the corner, their conversation turned to their old life at Hogwarts. They spoke of their friends, of Ginny, Neville, and Luna, and of the times they had shared in the common room, laughing late into the night. They spoke of their teachers, of Dumbledore and McGonagall, and of the lessons they had learned, both inside and outside the classroom. It was a conversation full of warmth, full of the things that had once made their lives feel full of possibility. And yet it was also a conversation tinged with sadness, for they knew that those days were gone and that they could never return to them. The world they had known had been irrevocably changed, and so had they. But in that moment, as they sipped their drinks and listened to the crackle of the fire, there was a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there were still places and people that could make them feel human again. Hogsmeade had always been a place of safety and comfort, and for a moment it was once again. They were able to escape the pressures of their quest, if only for a brief time, and to remember what it felt like to be a child again, without the weight of the world on their shoulders. The scene in Hogsmeade was not just about the trio's momentary reprieve from their mission. It was also a reminder of the sacrifices they had made, of the lives they had left behind, and of the world they were fighting to protect. The village was a symbol of everything that was at stake, the joy, the peace, the beauty of a life free from fear. But it was also a symbol of what they had lost and what they were willing to fight for. It was a fleeting moment of happiness in a world that was rapidly slipping into darkness, and it was a moment they would cherish long after they had left the village behind. In the film, this scene was trimmed down significantly, its emotional impact muted by the need to keep the pacing moving forward. The film chose to focus on the urgency of their mission, the ever-present danger, and the looming threat of Voldemort's forces. And while these elements were certainly important to the narrative, the exclusion of this visit to Hogsmeade robbed the story of a vital emotional beat. It was a reminder that even in the face of war, there were still moments of light, still places where they could find solace and safety, even if only for a moment. Without this scene, the film loses a sense of depth, of the emotional weight that comes with the knowledge that the trio is fighting not just for survival, but for the possibility of a better world. The visit to Hogsmeade was more than just a detour. It was a reminder that even in times of war, there is still a need for connection, for human warmth, and for the ability to find joy, however fleeting it may be. In a world that had been torn apart by conflict, Hogsmeade represented the hope that there could still be beauty, still be moments of peace, even in the darkest of times. The deleted scene may have been a small one, but it was a powerful one, a reminder that the most important things in life were not always the grand battles, but the quiet moments of connection, of friendship, and of love. Number 20. Dumbledore and his family. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, one of the most pivotal and humanizing moments in the story is a scene that was cut from the final film but had the potential to provide deep emotional resonance. The scene focuses on Albus Dumbledore's personal history and the profound impact his family had on his life. Though brief allusions to his troubled past are scattered throughout the books, this specific moment would have allowed Dumbledore to speak more openly about the pain and regret that shaped him into the man Harry knew. Dumbledore, often portrayed as a wise and infallible mentor, would have been revealed in a new light, flawed, haunted by past mistakes, and more human than ever before. The scene occurs when Harry, still reeling from the revelations about Dumbledore's hidden past, asks him about his family. What follows is a raw and vulnerable confession, which adds a layer of complexity to Dumbledore's character. In this moment, he reveals not just the tragedies that befell his family, but also the idealism that led him astray in his youth. The audience learns about the painful relationship between Dumbledore and his brother Aberforth, a relationship marred by misunderstandings, jealousy, and a sense of competition. This is a relationship Dumbledore had not openly acknowledged before, and its impact on his life is far greater than anyone had ever known. Dumbledore's family history is not just one of conflict, but of broken dreams. As a young man, Dumbledore was driven by lofty ideals of improving the wizarding world, but his early attempts to make a difference led to devastating consequences. His vision for a better world ultimately led to his estrangement from his younger sister, Ariana, whose tragic fate was tied to the violent nature of their family. In his naivety, Dumbledore believed he could change the world through ambition and intellect. He thought that by striving to make magical society more egalitarian, he could erase the mistakes of the past. However, the reality was much darker. His pursuit of glory and power indirectly led to the death of his sister, Ariana. His regret over this loss was a burden that haunted him for the rest of his life, contributing to the shadows that lingered behind his otherwise outwardly perfect persona. In the film, Dumbledore's relationship with his family is hinted at through the dialogue and a few quick references, but the audience is never fully immersed in the tragic history that defined him. The brief moments where he mentions his family's past do not provide the depth necessary to fully understand his inner turmoil. It is in the deleted scene, however, that Dumbledore speaks candidly about the guilt he carried. The quote, "We were like the sunlight breaking on the rocks. I tried to fix the mistakes of the past, but some of them stay with you for life," encapsulates the essence of Dumbledore's heartache and the unhealable scars of his past. The sunlight, once a symbol of his youthful hope and aspirations, now represents the shattering of his idealism, the realization that some mistakes cannot be undone. His family, with all its flaws, had shaped his journey, not just as a wizard, but as a man. The scene also sheds light on Dumbledore's relationship with his brother Aberforth, which was fraught with rivalry and bitterness. The younger Dumbledore, full of grand visions, had once been incapable of understanding Aberforth's quieter, more grounded nature. The two were constantly at odds, with Dumbledore's ambitions often pushing him further away from his family. Aberforth's resentment of his brother only deepened when Albus, in his pursuit of fame and power, inadvertently caused their sister. Ariana's death. Aberforth could never forgive Dumbledore for this, believing his brother's grand dreams had cost them their family. Dumbledore, though deeply remorseful, never quite understood how to bridge the gap between them. It was only much later, in the shadows of his past, that he realized the enormity of the emotional distance between him and Aberforth. The film's omission of this scene deprived audiences of a chance to witness Dumbledore confronting his darkest memories. In the book, Dumbledore is not just a figure of wisdom, but a man who made monumental mistakes in his life. By removing this scene, the filmmakers missed an opportunity to show Dumbledore's vulnerability in a way that would have made his final sacrifice even more poignant. It is one thing to admire a man for his wisdom and courage, but it is another entirely to understand the depths of his regret, the personal pain that fueled his decisions. Had this scene been included, it would have underscored the central theme of Deathly Hallows, that even the greatest of heroes are deeply flawed and must confront their own demons before they can truly find redemption. In the deleted scene, Dumbledore's story about his early days as a young idealist, full of ambition and dreams of a better world, would have struck a chord with audiences. His youthful arrogance and drive to change the world mirror the traits of many young people, filled with hope but lacking the wisdom that comes with experience. It is heartbreaking to see how this idealism, while well-intentioned, led to the death of his sister and the eventual downfall of his relationship with Aberforth. Dumbledore's inability to see the flaws in his own vision, his blindness to the consequences of his actions, highlights the tragedy of his life. His story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of understanding the weight of one's decisions. The inclusion of this scene would have also added depth to the overarching narrative of the Harry Potter series. Throughout the story, Harry is often presented with the challenge of reconciling the ideals he holds with the reality of the world around him. Much like Dumbledore, Harry grapples with the consequences of his actions, particularly when it comes to the people he loves. In Deathly Hallows, Harry's ultimate decision to sacrifice himself to Voldemort is a reflection of the lessons he learned throughout his journey, not just from his own experiences, but from the legacy of those who came before him. Dumbledore's story, had it been fully explored in the film, would have further enriched this theme of sacrifice, redemption, and the painful cost of ideals. Harry's relationship with Dumbledore is also marked by a sense of mistrust, particularly after the revelation of the headmaster's past actions. This tension could have been explored more fully in the film, particularly through the lens of the deleted scene. While Harry harbours feelings of betrayal, Dumbledore's willingness to share the painful details of his past would have shown Harry that even those who appear infallible are still human, still capable of making mistakes. The bond between them would have been solidified not just by admiration, but by a shared understanding of the complexities of life, loss, and the search for redemption. Had this scene been included, it would have deepened the emotional resonance of Dumbledore's final moments. The knowledge of his struggles and regrets would have added a new layer to his sacrifice in the final battle against Voldemort. His death would no longer have been just the passing of a wise and powerful wizard, but the tragic end of a man who had spent his life trying to fix the broken pieces of his past. It would have been a fitting conclusion to a character who, despite all his brilliance, never fully escaped the shadows of his mistakes. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore's past is more than just a backstory. It is a mirror to Harry's own journey. By including the scene where Dumbledore reveals the painful details of his family history, the film would have added another layer of depth to both characters. Harry's understanding of Dumbledore's sacrifice would have been more profound as he saw the parallels between their lives. Both were shaped by family tragedy, both had to confront their past mistakes, and both found redemption in their choices. In the end, Dumbledore's story would have been one of the most poignant elements in Deathly Hallows, reminding us that even the greatest of wizards are human, and their greatest triumphs come not from their magic, but from their ability to acknowledge and overcome their flaws. Number 21. Ron and Hermione, the first fight. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the emotional depth of Ron and Hermione's relationship reaches a critical juncture. A scene that was ultimately cut from the film, but could have significantly changed the trajectory of their arc, depicts their first major argument. This moment, teeming with unresolved tension and long simmering frustration, shows how even the strongest bonds can face the harshest trials in the midst of stress and uncertainty. As the trio, Ron, Hermione and Harry, embark on their perilous quest to find the Horcruxes, the weight of the world seems to press in on them. The situation grows more desperate with each passing day, and their fragile unity is tested not by the external dangers they face, but by the internal struggles that are only just beginning to surface. The scene begins with a simple disagreement over a seemingly insignificant matter, the way Hermione wants to approach their next move. It seems trivial at first, an argument over how to search for their next Horcrux, but as the seconds tick by, the tension becomes palpable. For weeks, Hermione has been the driving force behind the group's mission. Her intellect, her determination, and her unshakable belief in the cause have kept them moving forward. But as with all things, this sense of purpose eventually takes a toll. Ron, always the one to deflect with humor or sarcasm, cannot contain his frustration anymore. His irritation, quietly building for some time, bursts out. He lashes out at Hermione, accusing her of taking charge in a way that disregards everyone else's input. He's angry, and it's clear that it's not just about their strategy or the immediate situation. It's about something deeper. The pressures of the mission, the constant danger they're in, and the overwhelming uncertainty of their lives in the shadows of war have left him feeling helpless and insignificant. Hermione, for all her brilliance, seems to always have the answers. She takes charge, making decisions without consulting anyone, or so it seems to Ron. She's so determined to stay focused on the task at hand, so intent on finding the next piece of the puzzle that she forgets to acknowledge the people standing beside her. And this is what breaks Ron. It's not just that Hermione is bossy, as he might joke in another moment. It's that she's acting as if she's the only one who can solve their problems. "You're always acting like you're the only one with the right answer," Ron spits out, his voice tight with frustration. "We're all in this together, but you're always the one making decisions. It's like you don't even care that we're all struggling just to keep up with you." He looks at her, his chest heaving, his anger raw and unfiltered. It's a side of Ron that hasn't been seen before, a side that comes from a place of insecurity and fear. Hermione's reaction is swift, though not as volatile. She doesn't shout or cry. Instead, she looks at him with a mixture of surprise and hurt. Her response is sharp, biting, and filled with an emotion she can no longer hide. "I'm not doing it alone," she snaps. "We're all in this together, but you're too busy sulking to even see it." The words are out before she can stop them, but they've been building too. She's been holding on to her own frustration for months, watching as Ron retreats into himself, unable or unwilling to confront the rising tension between them. She's been the one trying to keep them focused, trying to keep the group intact while Ron has distanced himself. She's trying to hold on to the bond they share, but it feels increasingly like she's doing it alone. This moment is pivotal. It is the first time we truly see Ron and Hermione's relationship as it might have been if the narrative had allowed them to confront their emotions head-on. It's a scene that could have added layers to their characters, showing how even in the most difficult times, they are still learning how to communicate, how to trust each other, and how to forgive. The lack of this scene in the film leaves a gap in their development, a gap that makes their eventual reconciliation feel a bit rushed. In the book, this argument serves as a wake-up call for both of them. For Ron, it forces him to recognize the weight of his own insecurities and fears, while for Hermione, it's a painful acknowledgement that she's been so wrapped up in the mission that she's failed to notice how her actions have affected the people closest to her. The argument isn't just about what's happening in that moment, It's a culmination of everything that has been building up since the start of the series. It's a reflection of Ron's struggle with his own worth. Throughout the books, he's been the sidekick, the one who feels overshadowed by Harry's fame and Hermione's intelligence. But in Deathly Hallows, the stakes are higher than ever, and Ron is acutely aware of his perceived shortcomings. He feels that Hermione has become the leader of their trio, the one who always knows what to do, and he resents it. He resents being left behind, both physically and emotionally. For Hermione, this argument reveals something just as painful. It exposes her fear of being abandoned. Throughout their journey, she has taken on the role of the responsible one, the one who keeps everyone together. But underneath that, she's afraid of losing the people she loves. She's terrified that Ron will leave her, that Harry might die, and that she'll be left alone with nothing but the weight of their mission. This fear has driven her to act in ways that push others away, thinking that by taking control, she can avoid the possibility of failure. But the argument is more than just a fight. It's a turning point, a moment where both Ron and Hermione are forced to confront their own vulnerabilities. They are both afraid of being alone, of being unimportant, of not living up to the expectations of the people around them. And in that moment of raw honesty, they begin to understand each other in a way they never have before. Had this scene been included in the film, it would have given audiences a deeper understanding of Ron and Hermione's dynamic, particularly their romantic development. It would have shown that their relationship isn't perfect, that it is built on flaws and misunderstandings, just like any other real relationship. Their argument would have illustrated the complexities of love, how it isn't always about grand gestures or declarations of affection, but about the small, everyday moments of tension and reconciliation. The scene could have been a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, relationships require effort, understanding, and forgiveness. As much as the scene is about Ron and Hermione's relationship, it's also about the larger theme of the story. The central conflict in Deathly Hallows is not just about the fight against Voldemort, it's about the internal struggles that each character faces. For Ron and Hermione, the tension in their relationship is a microcosm of the larger battle. It's a reminder that even when the world seems to be falling apart, the most important thing is to hold on to the people you care about. This is a lesson that Ron and Hermione eventually learn, but their path to that realization could have been far more poignant if this scene had made it to the final cut. In the end, the argument is resolved, not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through small, quiet acts of understanding. The two of them, having said what needed to be said, find a way to move forward. They make the decision to forgive, to listen, and to rebuild their trust. It's a process, one that takes time and patience, but it's a necessary step in their journey together, and that, in many ways, is what makes their relationship so compelling. It's real, it's messy, it's imperfect, but in the end, it's worth it. Number 22, Lost Memories. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, there is a moment that was largely overlooked in the final cut of the film, a scene where Hermione Granger uses the Obliviate charm to erase the memories of her parents. It was a moment that could have added a significant layer to the emotional depth of the movie, highlighting the deep, tragic sacrifice she makes in order to protect her loved ones. While this scene was ultimately cut from the film, its impact on the narrative would have been profound. The film, as it stands, only gives us a brief glimpse of Hermione returning to her parents' home, casting the charm to erase their memories, but it does not linger long enough to explore the emotional weight of this decision. The cutscene, however, provides an intimate look into Hermione's internal struggle, adding complexity to her character and showing us just how difficult this choice was for her. The moment is subtle, yet powerful. In the deleted scene, Hermione stands in the doorway of her parents' house, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Her heart feels heavy with the knowledge that she is about to erase every trace of herself from their minds. She is not just removing memories, she is severing her ties to the family she loves, the family who, in her mind, may never be able to remember her again. It is not a decision made lightly, and Hermione's hesitation is palpable. She closes her eyes as the incantation begins to take effect, the magical words lingering in the air like a bitter farewell, her heart shattered with every syllable, each one tearing apart the connection between her and the family she had once shared so many memories with. The scene would have conveyed. Hermione is no longer the girl who is only concerned with school work or making her friends laugh. This moment is the beginning of her transformation into a true hero, someone who is willing to sacrifice everything, even her family, for the greater good. What makes this scene even more poignant is Hermione's internal dialogue. As the charm takes hold, she tries to convince herself that this is the only way to keep her parents safe, but even as she casts the spell, she cannot help but feel the weight of her loss. Her parents' faces are erased from her mind's eye, as if they were nothing more than strangers, and yet she knows deep down that she will never truly be able to forget them. The scene gives us a glimpse into the emotional turmoil that she experiences, something that the film glosses over. Every trace of her life, every moment that had been shared, was being wiped away, the scene would describe. Hermione is not just casting a spell, she is actively severing a part of herself, something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The cutscene also provides a much-needed moment of vulnerability for Hermione. Throughout the series, she is portrayed as strong, intelligent, and often the rock that keeps the trio grounded. However, this scene would have shown her humanity in a raw, unfiltered way. It was easy for the audience to see Hermione as the dependable friend who always had the right answer. But this deleted scene reminded us that she, too, was just a person capable of heartache and sorrow. It is an incredibly humanizing moment, one that gives depth to her character and allows the audience to connect with her on a more emotional level. As the magical words are uttered, the last camera would have lingered on her face, showing the tear that almost escapes her eye as she struggles to control her emotions. The strength she has demonstrated throughout the series is now coupled with the vulnerability that comes from loving deeply and sacrificing even more. There is also a critical element of sacrifice in this moment. Hermione is not merely performing a spell to protect her parents, she is making a decision that will forever change the course of her life. By erasing her family's memories, she is protecting them from the dangers of the wizarding world, but she is also cutting herself off from the people she loves. The movie, in its final form, does not offer a sufficient exploration of this sacrifice. The cutscene, however, provides the space for the audience to truly understand the magnitude of her decision. This is no small thing. Hermione is not just protecting her parents from Voldemort's followers, she is protecting them from the reality that she may never be able to return to them. It's a loss that she may never fully recover from, but it is a sacrifice that she makes for the greater good. What makes this scene even more tragic is that it goes unspoken. Hermione never vocalizes the pain she is feeling. This is not a moment where she asks for sympathy or expresses her sorrow. It is something she does in silence, and that silence speaks volumes. The film may have shown her casting the spell, but the deleted scene would have revealed the emotional undercurrents that run through that moment. It is not simply a magical action, it is a gut-wrenching personal loss that Hermione must endure alone. The finality of the gesture, the irreversible nature of it, is what makes it so powerful. There is no undoing what she has done, and in that moment Hermione is faced with the realization that she may never be able to return to the life she once had. One of the most striking aspects of this scene is the way it reflects Hermione's growth as a character. In earlier books and films, Hermione often struggled with following rules and doing what was expected of her. She was the one who fought against authority, who challenged the established norms and who always tried to find a better way. In this deleted scene, however, we see her accept that there are no easy choices, that sometimes the right decision is the hardest one to make. It is a powerful moment of selflessness where Hermione puts her family's safety above her own desires. She understands that while she may never be able to live with the consequences of this choice, it is still the right thing to do. This is a far cry from the young girl we met in The Philosopher's Stone, and it speaks volumes about her character development over the course of the series. It also makes us reconsider the nature of heroism. Throughout the series, we have seen Harry and his friends face unimaginable danger. They have fought battles, endured losses, and made difficult decisions. However, Hermione's decision to erase her family's memories is one of the purest examples of heroism in the entire series. It is not a heroic act performed for glory or recognition. It is a sacrifice made out of love and the desire to protect those who cannot protect themselves. In this moment, Hermione becomes not just a hero, but a symbol of the quiet, unsung sacrifices that often go unnoticed in the pursuit of something greater. Her bravery is not just in fighting dark wizards or enduring hardships. It is in the quiet moments where she makes decisions that will affect her life forever without ever seeking applause. It is important to note that this scene also offers a greater understanding of the relationship between Hermione and her parents. In the books, we know that Hermione has a strong bond with them, and she is often portrayed as the voice of reason within her family. But this scene would have shown just how much she is willing to give up for them. Her family has been a significant part of her life, and by erasing their memories, she is severing a part of herself. It's an act that speaks to the depth of her love for them, as well as the depth of her commitment to the fight against Voldemort. By removing her presence from their lives, she is choosing their safety over her own happiness, and that is a decision that she does not make lightly. In the end, the deleted scene from Deathly Hallows would have given the audience a much richer understanding of Hermione's internal struggles, her sacrifices, and her journey from the young, bookish girl we met in the first book to the brave, selfless hero she becomes. It would have added a layer of complexity to her character that the final cut of the film simply did not allow for, offering a more nuanced exploration of the price of heroism and the personal costs of the battle against darkness. It is a tragic yet beautiful moment that demonstrates just how much Hermione is willing to give up in order to protect the people she loves and to fight for a world that is worth saving. Number 23, The Mystery of the Ancient Ruins. The scene begins in the dense, mist-covered woods where the trio, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, wander deeper into the unknown, determined to find the next Horcrux. Their faces, weary from days of constant travel and the burden of the task ahead, are lit by the faint glow of their wands. The air is thick with the ominous silence of the forest. With every step, the sense of magic grows heavier, as if the very trees were watching them. They are approaching something ancient, something forgotten, a place that holds secrets long buried beneath centuries of decay. Harry's attention is caught by a sudden change in the air around them, a subtle shift almost imperceptible, but there. He stops, his brow furrowing as the faint glow of his wand flickers with a pulse of power. Hermione, always perceptive, looks around, her curiosity piqued. "Do you feel that?" she asks. Ron is the first to catch the faint shimmer in the air. It's like the magic of the place is trying to remain hidden, trying to keep them away. They come upon the ruins shortly after. The structure is partially collapsed, with ivy snaking its way through the cracks in the stone. Broken pillars jut out from the earth like the skeletons of a long-forgotten civilization. The ruins seem to whisper with the weight of centuries, as though the very stones have stories to tell. Hermione, ever the scholar, moves closer, her eyes scanning the ancient carvings on the walls. She recognizes a few symbols, but they are incomplete, as if the magic of the place was meant to stay hidden, locked away for all eternity. As they approach the center of the ruins, the magic in the air thickens. The very earth seems to hum with power, a deep resonance that vibrates through their bones. Harry, sensing something more than just the remnants of a forgotten civilization, steps forward, his wand raised. A cold wind sweeps through the air, and the ruins seem to shift almost imperceptibly, as though they are alive. The stone beneath their feet feels colder now, a foreboding chill that creeps up their spines. Then they hear it. A faint, echoing sound like a low growl reverberates through the ruins. A magical barrier, unseen to the eye but felt in every nerve, comes to life around them. It's not a physical barrier, but a force that seems to pulse with malice, pushing against them, testing their resolve. Harry instinctively raises his wand higher, his grip tightening. The barrier shimmers, a thin veil of energy that seems to stretch across the ruins, blocking their path forward. Hermione, her brow furrowed in concentration, murmurs an incantation, attempting to break through the force, but the magic of the barrier resists, pushing them back with an invisible hand. The air is thick with tension as the trio realizes that they are facing something far older and more powerful than they anticipated. Ron, ever the pragmatist, suggests they turn back, but Harry, ever determined, shakes his head. "We can't," he says, his voice steady but filled with the weight of their mission. "This place is more than just a ruin. It's connected to the past, to Voldemort's past. We have to go further." And so they push forward, resisting the pull of the barrier. Harry feels it in his bones. This is no ordinary ruin. The magic here is ancient, woven deep into the fabric of the land, and it holds secrets that could change the course of their journey. With every step, the pressure from the barrier intensifies, a feeling like 1,000 invisible hands pushing against them. But they persist, knowing that they are on the cusp of discovering something crucial. In that moment, Harry recalls a conversation he had with Hermione earlier about how the Horcruxes were tied to the darkest moments in history, hidden in places steeped in ancient magic. This is where it has to be, Harry thinks, the urgency of the task at hand sharpening his focus. And the answers are here. The trio reaches the heart of the ruins, and it is there, among the broken pillars and shattered stone, that they uncover the first sign of what they've been searching for. An ancient chest, weathered and worn but unmistakably magical. The chest is embedded in the stone, its edges glowing faintly, as though reacting to their presence. This is no ordinary object. It's something ancient, something meant to remain hidden for centuries. Hermione, her eyes wide with excitement, rushes to examine it, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings on the lid. The magic of the chest is undeniable, and Harry can feel its connection to the Horcrux they seek. But before they can open it, the barrier surges again, stronger this time, pushing them back. The ground beneath them trembles, and for a moment Harry fears the entire ruin will collapse around them. Hermione casts a protective charm, shielding them from the worst of the force. Ron, his face tight with determination, grits his teeth. "We have to get in," he says, his voice strained. "Whatever's in there is important." Harry nods, his mind racing. They can't afford to leave without knowing what the chest contains. This might be their only chance to get closer to their goal. With a wave of his wand, he strengthens the shield around them, allowing Hermione to carefully begin the incantation that will open the chest. The magic crackles in the air as the lock begins to glow, its ancient wards resisting, but ultimately yielding. The lid creaks open, revealing the contents within. Inside the chest, they find more than they expected, not just the Horcrux, but ancient magical artifacts, relics that seem to hum with power. They are artifacts of a time long past, objects that, if properly understood, could be used to unravel the mysteries of the wizarding world. But Harry knows this discovery is not without consequence. The magic of the place is not done with them yet. It will not allow them to leave easily. The barrier pulses again, and this time the air itself feels like it is pressing in on them. The trio grabs the Horcrux, but they know their task is far from over. They have uncovered a clue, a piece of the puzzle, but the true power of the ruins and their connection to Voldemort's past remain a mystery. As they leave the ruins, the heavy sense of magic lingers in the air, like a shadow that follows them wherever they go. The battle is not over, but this discovery has brought them one step closer to their ultimate goal. This scene, while omitted from the final cut of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, holds significant importance in the narrative. The ancient ruins are more than just a backdrop. They represent the deep, hidden layers of magic that shape the world the trio is trying to navigate. In a way, the ruins embody the very nature of their quest, a search for hidden knowledge, ancient power, and the secrets that can turn the tide against Voldemort. This scene also reinforces the theme of history and legacy, showing that the past is not something that can simply be forgotten or erased. The ruins are a testament to the idea that magical knowledge, especially ancient knowledge, is both powerful and dangerous. Its secrets can shape the future, but only if one dares to face them. By leaving this scene on the cutting room floor, the film missed an opportunity to emphasize the role of history and forgotten magic in the trio's journey. The ruins, the chest, and the magical barrier are all symbols of the larger forces at play in the wizarding world, forces that Harry, Ron, and Hermione must learn to understand and confront in their quest to defeat Voldemort. Number 24, Ron and his fears. In the final chapter of the Harry Potter saga, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, we witness Ron Weasley's character evolve in subtle but deeply important ways. Throughout the series, Ron has always been the loyal, sometimes comical friend, a source of levity in the darker moments. Yet beneath his affable exterior there are layers of complexity, layers that are only hinted at but which hold immense emotional weight. One of these layers was meant to be revealed more fully in a deleted scene where Ron confronts his own internal struggles and fears, giving us a deeper understanding of his character. This scene, had it made it into the final cut of the film, would have added an emotional depth that is currently missing from the cinematic version of Deathly Hallows. In the scene, Ron reveals his darkest fear, one that gnaws at him throughout their journey to defeat Voldemort, that he is not as important or brave as his two best friends, Harry and Hermione. For Ron, being in the shadow of such extraordinary companions was a constant source of doubt. As they ventured deeper into the perilous world of dark magic and danger, his fear grew, and it began to manifest in ways that were subtle, yet profound. He feared that he would not be able to keep up, that his contribution to the fight against evil would be inadequate, that he would falter when it mattered most. This self-doubt caused a crack in his otherwise unshakable loyalty, and it's something that often gets overlooked when we discuss Ron's role in the series. The film version of Deathly Hallows shows Ron's moment of weakness in a different light, his decision to leave Harry and Hermione after a heated argument. However, the deleted scene, which never made it to the screen, delves much deeper into the psychological underpinnings of his departure. In the book, this moment is crucial for understanding Ron's internal battle. The scene shows Ron as more than just a frustrated teenager in a fit of anger. It reveals a young man grappling with his own sense of worth and the pressure of living up to expectations. Ron's fear was rooted in a constant comparison to Harry. The chosen one, Harry's courage was unquestionable, and his path seemed to be set from the moment he learned of his magical heritage. Hermione, on the other hand, was brilliant, always the one to come up with plans, answers, and solutions. Ron, in contrast, felt like the one who was simply tagging along, contributing more for his loyalty than his own skills. While Harry and Hermione braved the unknown with determination, Ron often felt like he was trailing behind, both figuratively and literally, unable to contribute at the same level. This fear of inadequacy was something that plagued him constantly, even when he tried to brush it aside with humor or sarcasm. In this deleted scene, we see Ron vocalize these fears. It's a quiet moment, not one filled with grand gestures or loud arguments, but one that reflects his vulnerability. His voice shakes as he admits that he's afraid of failing them, of being the one to hold them back when they need him the most.
"I can't be the one you are, Harry," he confesses. I always follow behind you, but what if I can't keep up someday?" These words, spoken from the heart, carry the weight of everything Ron had been hiding from himself and others. It's a moment of rare honesty, showing just how deeply he has internalized the notion that he is not enough. This deleted scene also offers us a glimpse into Ron's relationship with Harry and Hermione. While Harry and Ron's friendship has always been one of the cornerstones of the series, it's often taken for granted. Harry is the hero, and Ron is his sidekick. However, in this moment, Ron's vulnerability humanizes him, making it clear that their friendship isn't built solely on shared adventure and heroism. It is based on mutual respect, love, and a willingness to confront the darkest parts of themselves. For Ron, admitting his fear is not just a sign of weakness, it's an acknowledgement of the bond he shares with Harry and Hermione. He knows they will listen, even if they cannot always fully understand the pressures he feels. This scene would also have made Ron's eventual return to the trio much more impactful. When he leaves them in a moment of doubt, it is heart-wrenching, not because of the action itself, but because we understand the depth of his internal conflict. The audience, by then, would have already seen the cracks in his self-image, and so his departure doesn't come as a surprise. It's a culmination of his fear that he isn't enough.
When he returns, it is not just as a friend who has come back to fight, it's as someone who has faced his darkest thoughts and has come to terms with the fact that, while he may not be Harry or Hermione, he is still invaluable. The deleted scene would have set up this return beautifully, making it a true moment of redemption rather than just a narrative device to move the plot forward. Ron's fear of failure also speaks to a broader theme in the Harry Potter series, the idea of worth and identity. Throughout the books, characters are often defined by their actions and their ability to face fear. But Ron's story arc shows us that bravery isn't always about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about confronting your own weaknesses and fears. In the deleted scene, Ron shows us that true courage is not about being fearless, but about being vulnerable and still choosing to fight for what's right. Without this scene, the film version of Ron's departure can feel more like a temporary conflict, a moment of childish petulance that is quickly resolved without much emotional exploration. The deleted scene, however, would have given us a deeper understanding of why Ron left and why he felt the need to prove himself before returning to the fold. It's not just about him being upset with Harry or Hermione, it's about him struggling to reconcile his own fear of inadequacy and his need to feel worthy in a world that constantly demands more from him than he thinks he can give. The emotional payoff of this scene would have resonated deeply with the audience, as it taps into universal themes of self-doubt, fear of failure, and the longing to belong. Ron's journey is one of personal growth, and the deleted scene would have illustrated that growth more poignantly. It's easy to see him as the comic relief, but this scene would have reminded us that Ron, like all of us, has moments of doubt and fear, and that confronting these feelings is a necessary part of his growth. The deleted scene also holds a mirror to the nature of friendship. It shows that true friends are not just there to share in the fun or the victories. They are there to witness each other's darkest fears and help each other through them. Harry and Hermione's response to Ron's fears, had they been included in the film, would have further solidified their bond as a trio, showing that their friendship is grounded in love and acceptance, not just shared triumphs. While Ron's journey in Deathly Hallows is one of courage and redemption, the deleted scene would have given it a much more profound emotional foundation. It would have transformed his character from the comic sidekick to a fully realized hero in his own right, one who, despite his self-doubt, finds the strength to face his fears and return to the fight when it matters most. Number 25, The Trap in Beverly. The scene was set in a small, desolate corner of the world, the old house in Beverly standing with an eerie stillness. Hidden in its crumbling walls were secrets of magic so ancient that only the oldest of witches and wizards could comprehend them. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and their companions had stumbled upon this place as they tried to escape the clutches of the Death Eaters. The danger was palpable, the tension thick with each footstep. They had no choice but to seek refuge in this seemingly abandoned mansion. The dark magic that loomed over them was suffocating, and every creak of the floorboards or distant whisper of the wind seemed to carry with it the threat of imminent danger. But it wasn't the eerie atmosphere that would prove the most perilous. It was the dark forces that began to close in. The Death Eaters had found them, and soon they would be surrounded. As the Death Eaters moved in, their dark figures illuminated only by the pale moonlight, Harry could feel the weight of their presence like an oppressive storm in the air. They had underestimated the danger they were in. In this house, they would not simply be hunted, they would be trapped. The protective spells surrounding the mansion began to break, their protections weakening under the pressure of the Death Eaters' relentless assault. Harry's heart pounded in his chest. He had never felt more alone, more outmatched. But just as all hope seemed lost, something unexpected happened. From the shadows, a figure emerged, followed by several more. Old wizards, some recognizable, others unfamiliar, stepped into the fray, their wands raised in a powerful display of unity. They were the last vestiges of old magic, powerful yet long forgotten. Among them, Harry recognized a few familiar faces. One was a former Order member, another a once distant relative of the Weasleys. These ancient wizards had been hiding in the shadows, living lives far removed from the chaos of Voldemort's rise. Yet when they saw the battle unfolding, when they saw their world on the brink of collapse, they had come to fight. Their alliance was formed not by friendship or even by mutual understanding, but by the urgent need to preserve the world they had once helped build. These were not the wizards of the Ministry, nor the young, idealistic members of Dumbledore's army. They were the remnants of the past, standing on the precipice of oblivion just as Harry was. The old wizards' movements were graceful, practiced and deadly. As they fought, their wands illuminated the dark house, filling the air with light and bursts of power that shook the very foundations. It was not the force of young blood or untamed magic, but the measured precision of experienced hands. Harry could see them standing firm in the darkness, their eyes glinting with a resolve that only those who had witnessed decades of struggle could possess. Together these wizards formed a barrier against the Death Eaters, their wands cutting through the night like beacons of resistance. Despite the overwhelming force of the Death Eaters, the battle was far from one-sided. The dark wizards tried to advance, their curses flying, but the old wizards met them with a fierce defense, their spells hitting with deadly accuracy. Harry watched in awe as they maneuvered through the house, their voices low, their movements deliberate, showing Harry just how deep magic could run when wielded by those who truly understood it. The Death Eaters were relentless, but they were no match for the depth of knowledge and experience that the old wizards possessed. Harry couldn't help but marvel at how these once-forgotten allies had come together, disregarding old rivalries and differences for the greater good. It was a reminder to him that in the face of darkness, the world was not simply divided into heroes and villains, but rather into those willing to fight and those willing to give up. In the midst of the chaos, Harry had a realization. There was a deeper bond that united all wizards, one that transcended house allegiances, blood status, or political leanings. The battle for the wizarding world was not just about defeating Voldemort. It was about finding unity in the face of something far greater than any one individual. The old wizards, for all their differences, had fought for this world once before. They had seen the rise of darkness, and they had seen the moments of light. Now they were making their stand again, not for themselves, but for a future they had long since thought lost. As Harry stood, watching the battle unfold before him, he could feel the weight of what was happening. He wasn't alone anymore. In a world filled with division, where every alliance seemed to come with a price, he was witnessing something rare. These old wizards, once removed from the fray, were putting everything on the line. They were fighting not out of loyalty to a cause, but out of a deep, intrinsic belief that the wizarding world, despite its flaws, was worth saving. They were fighting for the future, even if it meant sacrificing everything. The battle was far from over, but it had shifted. The Death Eaters, once confident in their victory, now found themselves forced to retreat, their dark magic faltering under the combined might of the old wizards. Their curses slowed, their movements less sure, and the tension in the room seemed to ease, if only for a moment. Harry could hear the clash of magic, the hum of spells in the air, but there was a new sense of hope, however fragile it might be. As the Death Eaters pulled back, Harry allowed himself a brief breath, his mind still whirling from the intensity of it all. He wasn't sure how long the respite would last, but he knew it had made a difference. The old wizards stood tall, their faces lined with the years of battle, their wands steady in their hands. They had done what they could, and now the outcome was uncertain. But for Harry it was enough to know that even in the darkest of times, there were those who were willing to stand up and fight. It wasn't just about individual victories or defeats. It was about the strength of unity. In this battle, as in all others, the true power lay not in the strength of one wizard's magic, but in the collective will to stand together. The Death Eaters had learned that lesson, even if only for a fleeting moment. As the light from the wands of the old wizards faded into the shadows, Harry stood tall. He knew that this battle wasn't over. There would be more fights ahead, more sacrifices to be made, but this small victory was a step in the right direction. The battle is not over, he thought. but this is a step in the right direction. It wasn't the end of the war, but it was a glimmer of hope in a world that desperately needed it. And for Harry, that was enough to keep going. Number 26, magical plants and their power. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, magic is not just confined to spells and charms, but extends to the plants and herbs that grow within the magical world. The use of magical plants and their properties has always been a subtle but significant part of J.K. Rowling's wizarding universe. In the books, these plants are often used to create powerful potions, offer protection, or even serve as a means to survive dangerous situations. However, one particular scene from the book, where Hermione Granger shares her extensive knowledge of magical plants with Harry and Ron, was cut from the film adaptation. This omission, although understandable given the time constraints of a movie, is a significant loss, especially when considering how it would have enhanced both the story and Hermione's character. The scene in question occurs when the trio is on the run, constantly hiding and evading capture. As they prepare for the dangers that lie ahead, Hermione takes the time to explain how certain magical plants could be crucial for their survival. It's here that she introduces Harry and Ron to a rare plant, the moon seed, whose leaves glow faintly in the dark. Hermione explains its properties and how it can be used to neutralize poisons, a potentially life-saving discovery given the perilous circumstances they are in. This particular plant, with its subtle glow, could easily be seen as a symbol. For Hermione herself, often quiet and understated but brimming with knowledge and power. In the books, this scene serves several key purposes. First, it underscores Hermione's exceptional knowledge of magical plants and her ability to think critically in the midst of danger. Throughout the series, she has always been the most knowledgeable of the trio, and her expertise in various subjects, from spells to magical creatures, has often helped save the day. But the plants, particularly this glowing one, give Hermione a different dimension. It's not just her intellect that defines her, but also her preparedness and ability to think about the survival of her friends. She's not just a bookworm, she's a resourceful, practical wizard who can use her knowledge to get them out of life-threatening situations. By cutting this scene, the movie loses a chance to highlight this critical aspect of Hermione's character, her role as the intellectual and resourceful force that keeps the trio alive. Imagine the added depth this scene would have brought to the film, particularly in terms of character development. The audience would have seen a side of Hermione that is both academic and hands-on. She wasn't just the one who carried around books and scrolls. She also had the knowledge to use what she learned to protect her friends. The scene could have also provided more insight into the process of preparing for the dangers ahead, giving the characters and the audience a deeper sense of the looming peril. Hermione's expertise with magical plants would have grounded the fantastical elements of the story in something more real and practical. The visual imagery of the glowing leaves would have reinforced the mystical, almost ethereal quality of the world in which they live, while also giving the audience a sense of urgency as Hermione shared her knowledge. By omitting this scene, the filmmakers arguably missed an opportunity to showcase the depth of the world of magical plants. While the films occasionally touch upon potions and magical creatures, the intricacies of magical botany rarely receive the attention they deserve. This particular plant, the moon seed, is not just a tool for survival, but it carries within it the ancient, almost forgotten magic that is intrinsic to the wizarding world. In a way, it's a reminder that magic is not always about dramatic spells or the sweeping grandeur of battles, but also about the small, quiet things that often go unnoticed. These plants, their subtle powers, and the knowledge required to use them play a crucial role in understanding the broader magic of the wizarding world. Had the scene been included, it would also have helped establish Hermione's role in their journey in a way that the films often neglect. While Harry is the central figure in the battle against Voldemort, Hermione's contributions are invaluable, yet often overshadowed. Her intellectual prowess is often taken for granted in the films, and scenes like this one would have illustrated the full extent of her importance. Her knowledge of magical plants is not something trivial. It's a tool for survival in a world where danger is always lurking. The absence of such a scene makes Hermione's talents appear less vital than they are in the books. She's not just the one who holds on to important information, she is an expert in fields that save lives, something that is often glossed over in the movie adaptation. Additionally, this scene could have added a layer of realism to the story. In the books, when the trio is on the run, they are constantly forced to fend for themselves, surviving in forests and caves. They would need more than just their wands. They would need practical, everyday tools. The inclusion of magical plants as part of their arsenal would have grounded their fight in something more tangible. It would have emphasized the idea that survival in the wizarding world is not just about defeating dark wizards, but also about understanding and mastering the world around you. The natural world, with its magical properties, plays an essential role in their survival. Another interesting aspect of the cutscene is the emphasis it places on Hermione's ability to teach and share knowledge. In a world where magic is often seen as a mystery, Hermione's role as a teacher brings a sense of order and logic to the chaos. She's not just a passive participant in the war against Voldemort, she actively educates Harry and Ron, sharing her expertise and helping them make informed decisions. It would have been fascinating to see Hermione take on this role more explicitly in the film, where she could have been portrayed as both a student and a teacher. Her ability to pass on her knowledge about plants, their uses and their risks would have painted her as a more multifaceted character. The absence of this scene also impacts the pacing of the film, creating a missed opportunity to slow down the action and delve deeper into the trio's survival tactics. Much of the film focuses on high-octane action, but there are moments where slowing down to focus on the character's emotional and intellectual growth would have been welcome. Hermione's knowledge of magical plants, while not as exciting as a battle with Death Eaters, would have been a perfect moment for reflection and growth. It would have allowed the characters to pause, to think about their future, and to prepare for what lies ahead. Moreover, the inclusion of this scene could have played into the larger themes of the book, such as the importance of knowledge and preparation in overcoming adversity. Throughout the series, Harry and his friends face challenges that require not just bravery, but wisdom. The inclusion of a scene in which Hermione teaches them about magical plants would have reinforced the idea that preparation is key. It's not just about being able to fight, it's about knowing what tools to use when things go wrong. The scene could also have provided a poignant moment between the trio, particularly between Hermione and Ron. While Ron often plays the comic relief, moments like this one, where Hermione takes the lead in sharing critical knowledge, would have demonstrated the trust and dependence they have on each other. It's these small, subtle moments that show the strength of their friendship, and in this case, it's Hermione's expertise that makes her an invaluable member of the team. In conclusion, the cutscene about magical plants would have added depth, realism, and emotional weight to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Not only would it have illuminated the importance of knowledge in survival, but it would have also showcased Hermione in a light that reflects her true role in the trio's journey, more than just the bookish girl, but a capable, intelligent, and resourceful wizard. By cutting this scene, the film missed an opportunity to make Hermione's contributions more visible and to deepen the audience's understanding of the magical world in which they live. Number 27, The Curse at the Ministry of Magic. The scene in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows that was cut from the final film depicts a chilling encounter with a dark, magical curse deep within the Ministry of Magic. Although it never made it to the silver screen, its inclusion would have added a layer of depth and danger to the already tense narrative. This was no ordinary curse. It was one of Voldemort's most potent and insidious creations, intricately designed to expose and exploit the hidden fears and darkest secrets of those who dared to cross its path. In the depths of the Ministry, Harry, Ron, and Hermione find themselves confronted with a curse that is not merely a barrier to their progress, but an active force that preys upon the emotions and unresolved fears within their hearts. The curse was designed to make the very air around them feel heavy, as if it were alive with a malevolent intent. As they stepped deeper into the labyrinthine halls of the Ministry, the very atmosphere thickened, an invisible pressure that clung to their chests, making each breath feel laborious. It was not just the weight of the task ahead, but the curse itself digging into their very souls. Hermione, ever the cautious one, warns her friends to tread carefully. "This curse is not like any we've faced before," she would have said. "It feeds on our deepest fears, on what we hide from the world." She knew, as did they, that Voldemort had crafted this curse to be an obstacle unlike any other. It was a test of their inner strength, an assault on the psyche, aimed not at their physical bodies but at their very beings. As the trio navigates this cursed environment, each of them is forced to confront their own hidden anxieties. For Ron, it's the fear of being overshadowed by his brothers, the sense that he is always second best, always the sidekick.
As they moved further through the Ministry, the curse seemed to whisper to him, drawing out his deepest insecurities. His every step felt as though he were being pulled back by an invisible hand, as if the curse were reminding him of his constant struggle to be seen, to be valued. His discomfort was palpable, but his friends, aware of his weaknesses, stood by him, pushing him forward. Hermione, too, was not immune to the curse's effects. As she advanced, the weight of the magic seemed to press harder on her shoulders, and the curse turned its attention to her most deeply buried fears, the fear of failure. Hermione had always prided herself on being prepared for anything, the one who had the answers. But beneath that confidence lay a constant worry. What if, just once, she couldn't save her friends? What if she was the one who couldn't pull them out of danger? This fear surfaced in the curse's presence, taking the form of a voice in her mind, questioning her ability to lead, to protect, to be the one who always had the solution. And then there was Harry. The curse found him vulnerable in ways even he didn't understand. His deepest fear, more profound than anything he had ever admitted to himself, was his fear of losing the people he loved. After all, he had already lost so many, his parents, Sirius, Dumbledore, and Cedric. Each loss had carved a deeper wound in his heart, and Voldemort knew this. As the curse twisted around him, he could feel the suffocating grip of that fear, of being abandoned, of standing alone against the forces of darkness with no one to help him, no one to hold on to.
It was a crushing, all-consuming dread that gripped him as they moved deeper into the maze-like corridors of the Ministry. The curse itself was a tangible thing, a force that didn't merely exist in the air, but seemed to have a presence, an intelligence of its own. It twisted and bent with each person's thoughts, drawing out what they feared the most and feeding on it. As the trio moved forward, they could feel the walls of the Ministry press in on them, the very halls seeming to shift and change, distorting and confusing their path. The curse didn't just affect them physically, It twisted their very perceptions of reality, making it difficult to discern where they were or where they were meant to go. It was a puzzle, a trial meant to break them, to force them to confront the parts of themselves they were unwilling to face. Despite the overwhelming weight of the curse, the trio pressed on. With each step, they grew stronger, not because they were immune to the magic, but because they were learning to overcome it. Harry, who had always been a reluctant hero, found a new kind of strength within himself as he fought back against the fear the curse sought to unleash. He was no longer just a pawn in Voldemort's game. He was a fighter, someone who could endure, someone who could face down his own darkest fears. For Hermione, it was the realization that failure didn't make her any less of a person. She didn't have to be perfect, to be valuable. And for Ron, the curse forced him to face his self-doubt, to see that he was more than just a supporting character in someone else's story. He had a role to play, a place in this fight. Together they faced down the curse, and together they found the strength to continue their journey. In the end, the curse wasn't something they could simply break with a spell. It was something they had to survive, something they had to endure. And by surviving it, they proved not just to themselves, but to the world that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. They weren't just children playing at heroism. They were warriors, each of them battling their own internal demons, and each of them emerging stronger for it. The inclusion of this scene would have added a layer of complexity and depth to the film, showcasing the psychological battles that the characters faced in addition to the physical ones. It would have demonstrated the intricacies of Voldemort's magic, revealing just how far he was willing to go to break the spirits of his enemies, to use their own fears against them. And perhaps most importantly, it would have highlighted the true growth of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They weren't just the children who had stumbled into this battle, they were becoming the leaders they needed to be. They were no longer merely surviving. They were beginning to thrive, despite the odds. This scene also offered a glimpse into the true nature of Voldemort's power. We had seen his destructive magic, his violent spells, but here we saw something even more terrifying, the ability to manipulate and twist the very essence of a person's soul. This was magic that didn't just kill, it crushed, it bent, it broke, and it consumed. It was a reminder of the true horror that Voldemort represented, not just as a dark wizard, but as a force that sought to unravel the very fabric of human spirit. Had this scene made it to the film, it would have added an emotional and psychological layer to the journey of the characters, enhancing the stakes and making their eventual triumph even more poignant. In the end, while the scene may have been cut, the idea behind it remains one of the most potent reminders of what it means to face the darkness, not just in the world around us, but within ourselves.